Okay, so let me start by saying I'm not one of those hacker types. I don't have some crazy computer setup with 3 monitors, glowing keyboards, or whatever. I'm just your average dude, college dropout, part-time barista at Starbucks, spending way too much time doom scrolling through TikTok and Reddit. I wasn't looking for trouble, but man, it found me. It all started one night last month. I was chilling in my shoebox apartment, eating cold McDonald's fries I'd left out for way too long, watching some random YouTube channel about dark web horror stories. You know, the kind where the narrator's like, I saw a live stream of someone following me. Classic. I wasn't buying any of it. It seemed fake, like, yeah, right, the dark web is just a big bad boogeyman to freak people out. But you know how it goes, curiosity? It's a trap. I thought to myself, why not check it out for the meme? The YouTuber made it sound so dramatic, but how bad could it be, right? I mean, it's just a part of the internet, so I googled the basics, Tor browser, VPNs, all that stuff. I downloaded it, set it up, and within like 15 minutes, I was scrolling through sites that were super sketchy. It felt like I was in some weird cyber back alley. People were selling stolen credit cards, fake passports, even Netflix logins for dirt cheap. Still, none of it screamed dangerous. Honestly, it felt underwhelming, like Craigslist for criminals. But then, I stumbled on something different. It wasn't like the other sites. This one didn't have any sketchy ads or payment links. It was just a plain black screen with white text that said, "Do you want to meet the real you?" Okay, cheesy, right? But I was bored, so I clicked. It took me to a super basic chat room, like 2000 era old school. A box popped up, asking for my name. Obviously, I didn't give them my real one. I typed Ryan Taco Bell 420, because why not? Then a little loading circle appeared, and suddenly a message popped up. Welcome, Ryan Taco Bell 420, we see you. Now, I'm not going to lie, that freaked me out a little. They see me. I assumed it was just some automated chatbot trying to sound creepy, so I played along. Cool, what do you see? I typed. Another message appeared almost instantly. Everything. Let's play a game. Are you ready? Now, any sane person would have just closed their laptop right then and there. But I'm not sane, apparently. I was intrigued. Plus, I figured this was just some ARG, alternate reality game thing. I mean, some random dude on the dark web doesn't know anything about me, right? I replied, sure, what's the game? And then, this was where things started getting weird. The chat suddenly froze, like I couldn't type anymore. My whole screen glitched, and my Spotify, which had been playing a lo-fi playlist in the background, stopped. Then my laptop camera light flickered. I kid you not, it turned on for like 2 seconds and then shut off again. I sat there frozen, staring at my reflection on the dark screen. My heart was pounding, but I told myself it was just some buggy program. When the chat unfroze, another message popped up. We're sending you something. Don't ignore it. Sending me something? How? I didn't give them my address or anything. I laughed it off, but I couldn't shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. That night, I unplugged my laptop and stuffed it under my bed. I figured I'd overreacted. Maybe it was all just a prank. I went to bed, trying to convince myself I wasn't being stupid. The next day, I was back to normal life. I had an opening shift at Starbucks, so I had to drag myself out of bed at 6 a.m. On my way out, I noticed a package sitting at my door. Now my building doesn't exactly have the best security, like anyone can just walk in and leave stuff there. I figured it was something I'd ordered on Amazon and forgotten about. I didn't think twice. But when I got a closer look, my stomach dropped. The box was plain and unmarked, no shipping label, no return address. And written on top, in black marker, was my full name. Not Ryan Taco Bell 420, not even my Starbucks nickname, my real name. I told myself it had to be a coincidence. I mean, maybe a friend sent me something as a joke. I carried the box inside and opened it. Inside was a coffin. Okay, not like a full-sized coffin, it was a miniature one about the size of a shoebox. But still, who the hell sends someone a coffin? It was made of cheap wood, painted black, and there was a small note taped to the top. My hands were shaking as I opened it. The note said, "We found the real you. Welcome to your new reality." I just stared at it, trying to process what the hell was happening. My first instinct was to call the cops, but what was I going to say? "Hi, someone sent me a tiny coffin." That's not exactly illegal. So I did the next stupid thing. I posted it on Instagram. I snapped a picture of the box with the caption, "Dark web shenanigans. Who did this?" The post got a bunch of likes, mostly from my friends laughing at me. I felt a little better, like maybe I was overthinking it. But then, an hour later, I got a DM from an account I didn't recognize. No profile pic, no followers, nothing. The message just said, "Why are you laughing?" That's when I started to panic. I deleted the post, blocked the account, and turned off my phone. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. For the rest of the day, I kept looking over my shoulder, waiting for something else to happen. But nothing did. I tried to brush it off. Then, that night, I heard a knock at my door. It wasn't loud, just a single, soft knock. I froze. It was almost midnight. Who the hell would come to my apartment at that hour? I grabbed my phone, turned on the camera, and tiptoed to the peephole. My hallway was empty. No one there. But when I opened the door, there was another package. This one wasn't a box, though. It was a folded piece of paper taped to my door. Written on it, in the same handwriting as the note from the coffin, was a single sentence. "Next time, you won't wake up." I didn't sleep that night. After finding that note taped to my door, my entire body was locked in a constant state of paranoia. Every creak in my apartment, every faint sound from the street outside, felt like a warning. I stayed in the living room with all the lights on, clutching a knife I'd pulled from the kitchen drawer. I know, super cliché, but what else was I supposed to do? It wasn't like I could call 911 and tell them, "Hey, I think some dark web creeps are after me," because I was curious. They'd probably laugh me off the phone. But here's the thing, paranoia makes you see patterns in everything. Around 3 a.m., I noticed my Wi-Fi router blinking like crazy. You know how it's supposed to flash steadily when everything's normal? Well, it was spazzing out like someone was trying to break in. My stomach dropped. I checked my laptop, which was still unplugged and sitting under my bed where I'd left it, but I swear I could feel something was wrong. Against my better judgment, I plugged it back in and powered it on. Big mistake. The moment it booted up, a message popped up on the screen. No login, no apps, just this single line of text on a black background. "Did you like the coffin? Let's take this offline." I slammed the laptop shut so fast I almost broke the hinge. My pulse was racing and I started sweating like crazy. I wasn't dealing with some prankster anymore. Whoever this was, they'd hacked into my system. Worse, they knew exactly where I lived. I was terrified to even check my phone, but I had to do something. I grabbed it and saw a string of texts from an unknown number. The first one was a photo. It showed me sleeping in my bed. I'm not even kidding. The angle was from inside my room, like someone had been standing at the foot of my bed. My heart stopped. The second text came almost immediately after. "You look peaceful when you're unconscious." I couldn't breathe. That photo was from last night. The thought that someone had been in my apartment while I was lying there completely unaware made me want to throw up. My immediate instinct was to grab my keys and leave, but I hesitated. If they'd been inside, did they bug the place? Were they still here? I mean, how do you check for something like that? I felt trapped. Running might make me an easier target. Then came the third text. Don't think about running. We're closer than you think. At this point, I felt like my chest was going to explode. I didn't want to stay there a second longer, so I grabbed my keys, threw on a hoodie, and bolted out of the apartment. I didn't even care if they were watching me, I just needed to get away. It was still dark out, maybe 4 a.m., and the streets were dead quiet. I had no destination in mind, but I ended up at a 24-hour McDonald's about a mile from my apartment. The lights were buzzing, the place was mostly empty, and it felt safe, at least safer than being alone in my place. I ordered a coffee just to look like I wasn't panicking, then found a corner table where I could sit with my back to the wall. I kept looking around, watching for anyone suspicious. Everyone there looked normal enough. A few overworked employees, a couple of high school kids eating fries. For a brief moment, I thought maybe I'd overreacted. Maybe the texts were fake. Maybe the photo wasn't even real. But then, while scrolling through my phone, I noticed a new notification. It was from my Instagram DMs. I opened it, and there was a message from another burner account, completely blank. No followers, no profile pic. The message just said, "Why McDonald's? Not your style." My heart sank. I looked around the restaurant again, trying to act casual, but I couldn't see anyone paying attention to me. It was like they were reading my mind. Were they in here, outside, watching me through a camera? And then, just as I was about to call the police out of sheer panic, another message came through. This one had a picture attached. It was of the McDonald's, taken from the parking lot. Whoever this was, they were here. I bolted out of my seat so fast, I knocked my coffee over. The staff just stared at me like I was some crazy guy having a meltdown, but I didn't care. I ran to the front doors and looked outside. The parking lot was empty except for a few parked cars. There was no sign of anyone holding a phone, no one staring at me from a window. I walked around the building, checking every corner, but there was nothing. Then my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video. With shaking hands, I opened it, and my stomach dropped so hard I thought I might faint. It was footage of me pacing around outside the McDonald's, holding my phone. The video wasn't from some security camera. It was from the angle of a car parked right across the lot. Someone was sitting there watching me. My legs felt like they were going to give out, but I forced myself to move. I sprinted toward the main road, hoping to flag down a car or something, but just as I reached the curb, I felt a hand grab my shoulder. I turned around so fast I almost tripped, but there was no one there. I swear to God, no one. It felt like my mind was unraveling. I stumbled into a nearby convenience store where the cashier was half asleep behind the counter and begged him to call the cops. He looked at me like I was insane, but eventually dialed. While waiting, I kept looking out the store window, terrified that whoever was stalking me would burst in. The cops showed up about 15 minutes later, but by then there was nothing left to find. No suspicious cars, no evidence, just me standing there like some raving lunatic. I tried explaining everything, but when they asked for proof, I realized the texts, photos, and videos had disappeared from my phone. Just gone. The officers left after taking a brief statement, but I could tell they didn't believe me. Hell, I barely believed myself at that point. I went home after that, but it didn't feel like home anymore. I locked every window, barricaded the door, and didn't leave for the next 2 days. On the third day, I thought maybe it was over. No texts, no packages, no signs of anyone watching me. I was starting to convince myself that it was all some elaborate hoax, or maybe I'd dreamed the whole thing. But then, I found another package. This one was waiting for me on my bed when I got home from work. I swear I hadn't been gone more than 3 hours, and I'd locked everything before leaving. My hands were trembling as I opened it. Inside was a syringe taped to a note that simply said, It only takes one dose. Sleep tight. I swear to you, when I saw that syringe sitting in the box on my bed, my brain just short-circuited, like everything in me was screaming to get out of the apartment, but at the same time, I couldn't move. My feet were planted on the floor, my eyes locked on the syringe like it was about to spring to life and stab me. My thoughts were a mess. How did they get in here? What the hell is this for? Are they trying to poison me? Or worse, make me one of those horror movie zombies? The note didn't help either. It only takes one dose. Sleep tight. I couldn't even touch the box. I didn't want to go near it, as if the syringe could somehow leap out and jab me. I grabbed my phone and tried to think logically. Call the police again? But the last time I called, they treated me like I was either a paranoid idiot or high on something. I could hear the disbelief in their voices even as they filed the report. And besides, what would I even tell them? Hi, someone left a mystery syringe on my bed. Can you DNA test it and tell me what kind of nightmare juice it is? Yeah, that wasn't going to fly. So I did the next best thing. I took a photo of the syringe and the note, wrapped the entire package in plastic, and stuffed it into a backpack. Then I booked it to the nearest Starbucks. Don't ask me why Starbucks, it just felt like a public, semi-safe place where I could think. And maybe caffeinate myself out of this spiraling panic. I parked myself at a corner table, ordered the biggest coffee they had, and pulled out my phone. I started Googling things like dark web threats, real-life stalking, and mystery syringes. Not exactly productive, but it gave me something to focus on besides the fact that I was losing my mind. I was halfway through my coffee when my phone buzzed. At first, I thought it was just another random spam notification, but then I saw the caller ID. No name, no number, just unknown caller. My stomach sank. I stared at the screen, my finger hovering over the decline button, but something made me answer. Maybe I thought it was the police finally calling me back, or maybe I was just desperate for some kind of explanation. The moment I picked up, I regretted it. The screen didn't show a face, just pitch black, like the camera was covered. For a second I thought it was a glitch, but then I heard breathing. Slow, deliberate, human breathing. My heart was racing, and I was about to hang up when a distorted voice came through. "Ryan," the voice said, not my username, not some nickname, my actual name. I didn't respond. I couldn't. My throat felt like it was closing up. "You're not taking this seriously, are you?" the voice continued. It had this weird metallic echo, like they were using a voice modulator. "We gave you warnings, we've been patient, but you're still running. That's disappointing." "What do you want from me?" I finally managed to choke out. My voice sounded pathetic, even to myself. There was a pause. I could hear faint static in the background, like white noise. Then the voice spoke again. "It's not what we want, it's what you deserve." The screen flickered, and suddenly the video feed switched. I nearly dropped the phone. It was showing my apartment, not just the outside, inside, my living room specifically, like someone was standing there holding a phone or a camera. The lights were off, but the footage was crystal clear. I could see my couch, my laptop on the coffee table, and, this was the worst part, the door to my bedroom slightly ajar. "Go back," the voice said, "we're waiting." I ended the call. My hands were shaking so bad, I almost dropped the phone. My first instinct was to run out of the Starbucks, but where the hell was I supposed to go? I couldn't go back to my apartment, but I couldn't just stay there either. I felt trapped, like a cornered animal. And that's when I made another terrible decision. I decided to call one of my friends. I hadn't told anyone what was happening. Part of me didn't want to freak them out, and the other part didn't want them to think I was losing it. But at that moment, I didn't care anymore. I needed backup. Someone who'd believe me, someone who'd come with me to my apartment and prove I wasn't insane. I called Josh, my best friend from high school. He's the kind of guy who doesn't ask a lot of questions, which is exactly what I needed right then. When he picked up, I tried to keep my voice steady, but it came out shaky as hell. "Dude, can you come to my place, like right now?" It's midnight, man. What's going on?" Josh asked, sounding groggy. I could hear the faint sound of his Xbox in the background. "Look, I'll explain later, but I really need you here. Please." He sighed. "All right, give me 20 minutes. I hung up, paid for my coffee, and made my way back to my apartment. My heart was pounding the whole way. What if the person was still inside? What if they'd left something worse than the syringe? I wanted to turn around, but Josh was already on his way, and I couldn't leave him hanging. When I got back, everything looked normal. No creepy packages, no signs of forced entry, nothing out of place. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I waited outside, pacing nervously until Josh showed up in his beat-up Honda. "All right, what's the emergency?" he asked as he got out, still wearing pajama pants and a hoodie. I hesitated. "I think someone's been inside my apartment." Josh frowned. "Like a break-in? Did you call the cops?" "Not exactly," I said, avoiding his eyes. "It's more complicated than that." We went inside together. Josh was acting all calm and casual, flipping on lights like he was just there to crash on my couch. But I was on edge, checking every shadow, every corner of the room. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary until we got to my bedroom. The door was still ajar, just like in the video. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting someone to jump out at me. But the room was empty. At least it looked empty. Then Josh pointed something out. "Dude, what's that?" He was pointing at my bed. Specifically the sheets. They were messed up, like someone had been lying there. But I hadn't touched them since I left earlier that day. My heart sank. I walked closer, and that's when I saw it. A single red rose lying in the middle of the bed. Josh laughed nervously. "Okay, that's creepy as hell. Who leaves a rose? Some stalker ex." "It's not a joke, Josh," I snapped. "This isn't normal." I showed him the photo I'd taken of the syringe and the note. His face went pale. "Bro, you need to move. Like, yesterday." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Another unknown number, another message. This one had no text, just a video. I opened it and my blood went cold. It was live footage of Josh and me standing in my bedroom. The camera angle was from somewhere above us, like a hidden camera in the ceiling. Josh stared at my phone, his mouth hanging open. "Dude, is this happening right now?" And then a voice came through the speaker. Not distorted this time, clear and sharp, like someone was standing right next to me. "Ryan, it's time to go to sleep." For a second, I couldn't even breathe. That voice, sharp, calm, and so disturbingly close, felt like it had reached straight into my skull. I immediately dropped my phone like it was on fire, the video still playing on the floor. Josh grabbed my arm, his face pale as a ghost. "Ryan, what the hell is this?" he whispered, his voice shaking. I didn't answer him because I didn't have an answer. How the hell was I supposed to explain any of this? All I knew was that we weren't safe in my apartment. "We need to leave," I muttered, my voice barely audible. "Leave? Dude, where are we even going to go?" Josh asked, his voice a mix of panic and disbelief. "I don't care. Anywhere but here." That's when we heard it. A faint sound like a soft creak coming from somewhere in the apartment. Josh froze. I held my breath, listening. It was coming from the living room. It wasn't loud, but it was deliberate, like someone slowly shifting their weight on a floorboard. Someone who didn't want to be heard, but wasn't being careful enough. Josh's eyes widened, and he whispered, "Tell me you locked the door when you came in." I didn't. Before I could even process what was happening, the creaking sound stopped. The silence that followed was suffocating. We just stood there, paralyzed, staring at the open bedroom door, waiting for something, anything to happen. Then suddenly, my living room light turned off. Not flickered, not dimmed, it was off. And I didn't touch the switch. Josh grabbed my shoulder, whispering through clenched teeth, "We need to get the..." He didn't finish his sentence because that's when the sound of footsteps started. Slow, deliberate, heavy footsteps moving toward us. Whoever it was, they weren't in a hurry. They wanted us to hear them coming. I grabbed Josh's wrist and yanked him toward the bedroom window. "Help me!" I hissed. We fumbled with the latch, but my hands were shaking so badly it took twice as long as it should have to unlock it. The footsteps were getting louder now, closer. My bedroom door was still open, and the thought of someone stepping into the room at any second made me want to throw up. Finally, we managed to get the window open. My apartment was on the second floor, but at that point, I didn't care if I broke my legs jumping. Anything was better than waiting for whoever, or whatever, was walking toward us. Josh climbed out first, landing hard on the patchy grass below. I was halfway out the window when I glanced back toward the bedroom door. That's when I saw it. A shadow. Not a full figure, just the outline of someone or something standing in the doorway, perfectly still. My chest tightened and I scrambled the rest of the way out, hitting the ground hard. Josh grabbed my arm and practically dragged me to my feet. We ran. We didn't stop running until we were a few blocks away, hidden behind a strip mall dumpster. I was bent over, hands on my knees, gasping for air, when I realized Josh was looking at me, his face dead serious. "Ryan, what's really going on?" I couldn't lie to him anymore. Between gulps of air, I told him everything about the dark web, the coffin, the texts, the packages, all of it. He listened without interrupting, but the look on his face made it clear he thought I'd completely lost it. "So you're telling me," he said slowly, "some dark web psychos are stalking you because you clicked on the wrong site?" "Yes," I snapped, my voice rising. "Why would I make this up, Josh? You saw the video, you heard the voice. They were in my apartment." Josh ran a hand through his hair, pacing back and forth. Okay, so what do we do? Go to the cops?" "They won't believe me," I said, shaking my head. "And even if they did, what are they gonna do? Whoever this is, they're always a step ahead. They'll just disappear." We stood there in silence for a minute, neither of us knowing what to do next. That's when I noticed the black van. It was parked at the far end of the lot, half hidden in the shadows with its headlights off. It hadn't been there when we ran up to the strip mall, I was sure of it. My stomach dropped. "Josh," I whispered, nodding toward the van, "do you see that?" He turned to look, his face falling as he spotted it. "Shit, you think it's them?" Before I could answer, the van's headlights flashed on, blinding us. The engine roared to life, and the van started rolling toward us, slow at first, but picking up speed. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Josh's arm. We sprinted across the lot, weaving between parked cars, but the van stayed on us, its tires screeching as it made sharp turns. I could hear it getting closer, the sound of the engine practically in my ears. My legs were burning, my chest felt like it was going to collapse, but I didn't stop. I couldn't. We rounded a corner and ducked into an alley, squeezing behind a stack of old wooden pallets. The van screeched to a halt at the mouth of the alley, its headlights flooding the narrow space. I held my breath, my back pressed against the cold brick wall, praying they wouldn't see us. Then the van's doors opened. We heard footsteps, multiple sets this time, heavy boots crunching against the pavement. I risked a glance around the pallets and saw two figures stepping out of the van. They were wearing dark hoodies with the hoods pulled up, their faces obscured by cheap plastic masks. One of them was carrying something, the coffin. Not the miniature one from before. This was a full-sized coffin, black and shiny, like the kind you see in funeral homes. My blood ran cold as I watched them set it down in the middle of the alley, right under the van's headlights. "Ryan!" one of them called out, their voice distorted like before. "We told you it was time to sleep. Why are you making this difficult?" Josh grabbed my arm, whispering, "We have to get out of here." But I couldn't move. My entire body felt like it was glued to the ground. I kept staring at the coffin, and that's when I noticed it. The lid was slightly open, just enough to see the inside. And there, in the dim light, I saw something that made my heart stop. It was a photo. A blown-up photo of me lying in that coffin. Eyes closed, hands folded over my chest. It wasn't a selfie. Someone had taken it, and it wasn't just Photoshop, it looked real. One of the masked figures spoke again, their voice colder this time. "You don't have to make this harder than it needs to be. Get in." Josh finally snapped me out of it. "Dude, let's go," he hissed, yanking me to my feet. We bolted out the other end of the alley, not daring to look back. I don't know how far we ran or how long it took, but we eventually ended up in an abandoned construction site, hidden behind a stack of concrete pipes. We sat there in silence, gasping for air, too scared to speak. Josh was the first to break the silence. "They're not going to stop, are they?" I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "Number, they won't. I don't know how they're tracking me or what they really want, but one thing is clear, they've already decided how this ends. And it ends with me in that coffin." We didn't sleep that night. Not that I even could if I tried. Josh and I sat huddled in that construction site, the cold concrete pipes pressing into our backs, the sounds of the city in the distance doing nothing to calm us. My phone had been vibrating every few minutes, messages, calls from unknown, videos, but I didn't dare open a single one. Every buzz felt like a countdown. Josh finally spoke, his voice barely more than a whisper. "We have to do something. We can't just sit here and wait for them to find us." "They will find us," I said, quietly, staring at my phone, refusing to touch it. "They're always ahead of me. Every move I make, they already know. It's like they're in my head." Josh shook his head violently. "No, man, this is tech stuff, right? You said they hacked your laptop, your phone. Maybe we just need to disappear. Leave the city. Leave everything." I didn't respond. I wanted to believe him, but deep down I knew it wouldn't work. Whoever these people were, they weren't just hackers. They weren't just playing games. They were everywhere. And then my phone stopped buzzing. At first, I felt a wave of relief, but it didn't last long. The silence was worse. It was suffocating. It meant they were planning something. I kept staring at the screen, waiting for the next text or video to appear, but nothing came. Josh must have noticed the change in my expression because he nudged me. "What now?" he asked nervously. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "I don't know, it's like they've gone quiet." "That's a good thing, right?" Josh said, trying to convince himself more than me. "Maybe they gave up." I didn't have the heart to tell him what I really thought, that the silence wasn't a retreat. It was the calm before the storm, and the storm came faster than I expected. The first sign was the van. It came out of nowhere, its headlights cutting through the shadows of the construction site like a knife. Josh saw it first, his face going pale as he pointed. "Ryan." I turned and froze. The van was parked at the edge of the site, engine idling. The doors were still closed, but I could feel the weight of their presence. Whoever was inside wasn't waiting for an invitation. "Run," I whispered. But Josh didn't move. He just stared at the van, his breathing shallow like a deer caught in headlights. "Josh, run!" That's when the doors burst open. Two figures in dark hoodies jumped out, their masks glinting in the moonlight. They were fast, too fast. Before I could even react, one of them tackled Josh to the ground. He screamed, struggling against their grip, but they shoved something over his mouth, a cloth soaked in something. His body went limp in seconds. I turned to run, but the second figure was already on me. I swung wildly, trying to fight them off, but they were stronger, more coordinated. A sharp pain exploded in my neck, and I realized they'd jabbed me with something. My vision blurred, my legs buckling beneath me as the world tilted sideways. The last thing I saw before everything went black was the coffin. They had brought it with them. When I came to, everything was dark. At first, I thought I was blind, but then I realized I was in a confined space. The air was heavy, stale, and smelled faintly of dirt and wood. My heart started racing as my hands fumbled around, feeling smooth, cold surfaces. That's when it hit me. I was inside the coffin. I screamed so loud my throat burned, but the sound barely echoed. It was muffled, absorbed by the wood and the dirt around me. I started pounding on the lid, kicking, clawing, anything to get out, but it didn't budge. My breathing got faster, more frantic, and the coffin felt smaller with every second. I stopped struggling when I heard a faint sound, a voice. It was distorted, tinny, like it was coming through a speaker. "Ryan, you finally made it," the voice said. Calm, almost soothing. "You're probably scared. That's normal, but don't worry. This is where you belong." I started screaming again, kicking harder, slamming my fists into the wood until my knuckles bled. "Let me out, please! Let me out!" The voice continued, ignoring my panic. "We told you, Ryan. We told you it was time to sleep, but you didn't listen. You kept running, kept fighting. You brought this on yourself." I felt tears streaming down my face as I shouted, "Why are you doing this? What do you want from me?" There was a pause. Then the voice replied, "It's not about what we want. It's about who you are. You shouldn't have gone looking, Ryan. You shouldn't have opened that door. Some people don't deserve to know the truth." "What truth?" I screamed, my voice cracking. "What are you talking about?" The voice didn't answer. Instead, I heard something else, the sound of dirt, shovelfuls of it, hitting the top of the coffin. They were burying me alive. "No, please, no," I begged, slamming my fists against the lid until they went numb. "I'll do anything, just don't do this." The dirt kept coming. Each thud was heavier than the last, muting the world outside, sealing me in. I couldn't see, I couldn't breathe. My screams turned into sobs, and then into silence. I don't know how long I was in there. Hours? Days? Time didn't exist in that box. At some point I passed out from exhaustion, my mind slipping into darkness. When I woke up, I wasn't in the coffin anymore. I was lying on a cold concrete floor, staring up at a flickering fluorescent light. My body felt like it had been through a war, bruised, bloodied, and weak. I tried to sit up, but my head was pounding and my vision swam. That's when I noticed the camera. It was mounted on the wall, a small red light blinking steadily. I was still being watched. A voice crackled through a hidden speaker, the same distorted voice as before. "Congratulations, Ryan, you survived." I didn't respond. I couldn't. I just stared at the camera, my body trembling. "We gave you a choice," the voice continued. "And now you've seen what happens when you ignore the rules. But don't worry, this is only the beginning." The door behind me creaked open, but I didn't turn around. I didn't want to see who or what was coming for me. The last thing I remember is the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, echoing off the walls. And then, nothing. I'm writing this from a motel room. I don't know how I got here. I woke up this morning with no memory of what happened after the door opened. My phone was next to me, fully charged, with no missed calls or messages. It's like nothing ever happened. But it did. I can still feel the bruises on my body, the scratches on my hands. I can still hear the sound of dirt hitting the coffin. And the worst part? When I opened my backpack, the miniature coffin was there. Inside was another note. It said, "You can run, but we'll always find you." I don't know what to do. I don't know who they are or why they chose me. But I know one thing for sure. This isn't over. They're still watching. And next time, I might not wake up.